making sure our stream is proper. We'll start right
Check.
at noon. Okay, looks like it's starting up here. Perfect. Okay. Wow. Welcome everybody to another live stream every Friday at 12 p.m. Get Resource with Andre and Summer.
Hi, guys.
Hey, where we talk about anything around getting reconnected resource back to our self-source and others. So that can range from communication, relationships, anything in terms of relational. And this month we opened it up from our last session. Our last stream was the summertime busyness. So our theme for this month of June is busyness.
Busyness. Yeah.
And before we dive into the meat and potatoes, we always like to check in. And we always check in with what's alive in you. So what's alive in you, Summer?
Man, I feel really awake, alert, energized today. And just looking forward to the day and the people that we're talking to. Yeah. I feel vibrant today. Yeah. How about you? What's alive in you?
Excitement. Well, look, if you can check this out, we got a new background. Get Re-Sourced. Ta-da! Shows up. Kind of moving up in the world, right? Shows you how far we've gone. So really, really proud of this new setup here, and excited to hit the gym, hit the yoga afterwards, and just have some conversations. And we're also at a workshop this evening as well. So excited to see what happens. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Excellent. So busyness.
Yeah, busyness.
And what happens to our nervous systems and our ability to communicate when we're so busy.
Yeah.
And why are we so busy? Why is that such a thing?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to do. If I liken it to trying to survive and make ends meet, and perhaps looking to get the bills paid and get the expenses covered, or endless growth. And with it comes with a lot of challenges and lots of moving parts and people and processes. And so it can be quite complicated as life kind of gets busy. The economy itself, the rat race, the hamster wheel, climb the corporate ladder. There's a lot of like this ability to get something because I lack it. And so that for me is this energy of busyness. Is that for me, it's just like, oh, I gotta be productive because that means I'm successful, or it means I'm good enough. And at the end of the day, if I peel back the layers behind that, it's like I just want to be accepted as who I am. And of course, in order to get there, gotta have a roof over my head, food, basic needs of like companionship, food, and shelter. And that allows me to then explore. And when I look about how the body's needs in this physical plane, where my ego is needed for this physical plane, like I love my ego. It's about building a relationship with it to be in alignment with source, with soul, right? Not to get rid of it. Though the whole purpose of my ego is to help me survive in this physical plane. And so I need to do what I need to do in order to get those basic needs met. And if that involves toughing things out, numbing myself, then it's just part of my brain to allow me to get through tough times. But then what happens is I disconnect from my body. And when I disconnect from my body, I disconnect from my sense of self and my sense of knowing.
Interesting. As you're saying all that, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have it backwards in a way. Like, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We definitely need physical care. Well, we need air, fresh air, shelter, food, all of that stuff. But how do we get that stuff? It's through relationship. If we have relationship and a lot of resources in that way, it makes it so much easier And we have all of these very nuclear homes. We all have to do everything all the time. We have to go to work. We have to clean the house. We have to cook. There's no community that upholds a sense of nervous system relaxation for us. And it's so interesting that we've ventured into that level of success that you say that's very material, that's very busy. Yet I have this feeling the more people that you can have in your container and have an actual relationship with and ease into that through trust, the more easy it is to maintain a
Yeah.
roof over your head and all of those things, because everyone brings a different type of resource. So I
Yeah.
think actually it's kind of inverted. It's kind of backwards. And that just is coming up for me right now as you're talking about that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think is the trick of the illusion that I focus so much on what I see. It pulls me out of my inner world. Like, oh, what I see that's out there, that's affecting me versus what's in me that I interpret. It's like the idea of like, you know, thinking that outside circumstances are actually, or people controlling how I feel or how people make me feel a certain way, but it's actually my interpretation of what they did, the meaning that I attached to it makes me feel a certain way. And it's such a trick to recognize the projection that I think the outside world is like the cause, but the actual cause is my internal world, right? It's really a mind shift there. So just checking with some comments here. Tracy, welcome. Great to have
Hey,
you with
Tracy.
us. Two Tracys here.
Oh,
And Chris, howdy.
you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just this idea of like, nervous system regulation. And one thing I noticed with busyness is like this idea of individualism, like separatism of like trying to deal everything myself. And of course that dysregulates me. And my brain will do whatever it needs to do to numb myself from that overwhelming feeling just to push through it. But then if I numb myself and I'm not touched with my body, then how can I self-regulate?
Right. Isn't that the trick? How do you self regulate? And the thing is, I don't know if it's so much about self regulation as co regulation, as a culture. What are we doing? I mean, PTSD, adrenal fatigue, burnout, fiber, all of these things, I think, come from the inverted view of the hyper independence that we're seeing. And also, as we get into busyness, we get out of relationship. We're so busy doing, we don't see. And that's one of the things I regret. I mean, as a single mom, it's super hard to be super present as much as I think I would have liked to. And I think now, even with dual income families and the kids, they're being driven to every possible extracurricular activity possible. And I wonder how much communication goes on in there about how the internal environment is actually feeling in all of that busyness.
Yeah, I think it's like rare. I think it's judged, even in like corporate environments, of that being judged as being inefficient,
Yeah.
a waste of time, because it's about results and productivity and like go, go, go. And so this overemphasis on the external is what's driving our behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's easy to get trapped in that because then when I'm born, I look out and that's what I see and I react based on what I see and my five senses, right? Inputting in to, keep me vigilant and to protect me in order to survive and grow old enough to have procreation, have babies and pass on the next generation. That's that biological nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting, because I heard you say five senses, and then there's the sixth sense that's lumped into something else. But I believe we have far more senses than that.
I'm just saying the physical five senses is
right,
basic.
is where we're focusing on.
The default mode is what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's only just five senses.
Yeah.
It's just that we're so occupied with our physical environment because that's kind of like the first stage of survival. And to create a depth of awareness requires safety, requires space for that to develop. Just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he refers to, if I have all my basic needs met, then it's easy for me to then maybe create space for self-actualization, right?
Yeah, I wonder if it's because they talk about all the outside physical needs, the shelter, the whatever. They don't talk about nervous system. Perhaps that's our first need. That's even below the shelter and stuff. Because if your nervous system is wrecked, you might not even feel like eating. You might have a mental illness and run out and be exposed to the cold.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I notice it's very externally focused and then it goes to the actualization. But I think there's a very intrinsic need for the nervous system to be calm in the environment that it is, in the shelter, in the food that it's in. It occurs to me that I think that's missing in that.
Yeah, and for me to accept that, and that's okay as just the natural journey of human beings. At one point, I think everybody experienced that busyness and still does, right?
Yeah.
Especially when I'm in the soup of busyness and what's being modeled to me,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm known for, right? And we're here to just talk about, hey, what if there was another way that actually does lead to more effectiveness, more productivity, because there's more connection and more depth.
Yeah.
Chris said, I remember used to be addicted to busy. I was so extremely extroverted. I came home from work and there wasn't 4 or 5 messages on the answering machine yet. And this was before cell phones. Yeah, I was distressed, always on the go to distract from the chaos I was feeling inside.
Ah, yeah, the chaos inside.
Yeah. Well, it's because I lack the tools and the language to really make sense of what's happening within me, right?
Yeah.
If my parents didn't know, then how was I supposed to know?
Right. So the tools and the language
Mm-hmm.
of figuring out the chaos inside.
Yeah. And why is that important? Like figuring out the chaos inside.
Well, I think, and I'm going to bring up a Facebook post that I just posted about this new trend for estrangement and disconnection and ghosting and all of these things that we're seeing so much of. Because I think the newer generations are even getting a higher dose of that chaos, the busyness, and also the economic that it's like the dirty 30s, really, I would say. Yeah.
It's like the Great Depression.
The Great Depression, but it's also the Great Awakening in a way, because I think in the dirty 30s, they didn't have technology. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have all these bombarding types of information coming at people. It was just more of an economic chaos. But this is an economic, mental, spiritual chaos that is too much. And on top of that, I believe, based on my own kids and the kids I raised, and people might be noticing themselves, they're becoming more and more sensitive, more aware that our nervous systems are not meant to be ratched like that. We're not machines.
That's an interesting theory, because what I've witnessed that as well is, from my experience, like my parents or my grandparents, it seems like they had more will to withstand stress and chaos. I mean, wars, right? There was like, wow, like there's more, I don't know what it is, like the ability to numb.
Work ethic, like just
and drive through. Yeah, and the idea like, hey, let's just stay at a job for 40 years and retire. And that was easy back in the day. It was just accepted. That was the culture, and we'll just plow right through. But nowadays, what I'm noticing is that nobody's willing to do that anymore. And the amount of boredom, that's my judgment,
big
right?
Thing, sure.
Perhaps the disruption of the industries. There's many streams of income. Why would someone want to stay at a job for 40 years, right? And plan it out at the very beginning. So I don't know. I'm just maybe observing a change, a shift where people are more sensitive to that busyness, the perhaps the mundane, and they don't want to involve themselves in that mundane anymore. The judgery.
Right, the judgery. Maybe more meaning.
Yeah. More meaning.
More purpose.
Yeah.
To what they are doing, coming from a place of inner navigation, inner intelligence.
Right. And that's a call in to me to be connected to myself. Because if
Hmm.
there is a calling, if there's a particular purpose, that means my soul is talking to me. There's that whisper and it becomes louder and louder. And that's a beautiful thing.
It is. And so that brings us, I really want to bring this idea in, because the drudgery, the hankering it out, it brings up the word, slavery, really.
Yeah.
Like,
Worker
who,
bees.
worker bees, who forces themselves to work certain number of hours? And people now are working 2, 3, 4 hours and to get along. And a lot of us need to do that. What if we were more working together rather than working for someone else? How do we do that? And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine being with my parents or my children or whatever, because it's too stressful. There's Marshall Rosenberg talks about the 3 stages of emotional liberation. And so I believe we've come from a place where we are, is there a different word than slaves, emotional slaves? There's mental and emotional patterns that we've inherited, um, that requires a level of distraction from our inner world that I think our new generations, he brought up children and babies and what they come into, are not able to tolerate
Mm.
anymore. And I've noticed, I've seen it in myself. I know several people and a lot of people that have commented to my post that a lot of young adults, teenagers, are estranging, alienating their parents. They're very angry. And I think this has always been the case. Parents get a bad rap just because that's their job, to be parents. And none of us are ever going to be perfect parents because every kid needs a different environment to grow up in.
Mm.
But there's a trend for, and the second stage is there's emotional slavery, emotional obnoxiousness, and then emotional liberation. And as a culture, it looks like we're in emotional obnoxiousness, which is that, whatever, that's your problem. Go solve it yourself. I don't care what you think. I'm going to ghost you. I'm going to be angry at you. I'm going to tell you that I'm angry at you, and no holds bar, because there's no modeling for any other type of communication. People don't know how to say what's going on. It just comes out in this violent way, and our kids are speaking it. They're not being polite anymore.
Right.
They're not people pleasing. They're not going, oh, I have this obligation and duty to you, at the absolute distortion of my inner world and my nervous system.
Yeah.
They can't handle it anymore.
And I see it's such a gift to have someone like that mirror that back to me, right? Of what they're needing. Like, it's so hard, especially for our loved ones, to really hear behind the judgments and the accusations of like what they're really feeling and needing. But that emotional obnoxiousness stage is such a gift to elevate. Like, I see 2 paths to this, right? Like, growing up, like, I couldn't talk back to my parents. I would get beat or slapped for talking back. And I was trained to like listen to what they say, and what they say is right. And so and if I fell out of line, I got beat. Nowadays, in this culture, like, beating kids is like a no-no, right? You get, if your kids get beat, they're going to call the cops on you, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so there's a line there, and this is an invitation for an elevated level of consciousness, where there's 2 streams where certain parents could be like, well, I'm going to disown you, or I'm going to beat you for rebelling. And that's the old school mentality, right? And some kids would fall in line, some will rebel and peace out. Or this is an invitation for, if your kid is rebelling, to call you up, to look at yourself. What's going on here as a mirror? And why I name that, because how I see your daughter calling you into higher levels of evolution, right? Being obnoxious, speaking her needs, and really just rattling your nervous system. But I want to honor you because you have this desire to build a deeper relationship with her. And so you're willing to look at yourself. You're willing to grow yourself through that, rather than, you know what, she's a X whatever judgment and peace out.
Troublemaker, rude,
Yeah. Brat.
a brat. What other parents are what were some of the words? Um, Mean, rude, uh, disobedient, disrespectful. Um, all of those
Yeah.
types of terms, and it's painful.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. There's a list of offenses that people create, and if anyone's a parent listening to this, I invite you to think backwards to yourself and your parents in a time, because every child is angry at some point or another that their parents have done them a disservice. And I think in previous generations, we were people pleasers, obligation, duty. We go to our parents, whatever. But in our mind, we're thinking, oh man, this sucks and this is boring and I have to go and I don't really want to go. And I'm not really connected to my parents, but I'll go because I'm supposed to. That's not connection. And so I think these kids now are like, fuck, I don't like this fakeness. I don't like having to contort my nervous system to fit into this model of society that is so busyness that just doesn't feel comfortable in my own body. I think by not beating them, we've at least given them some permission to, well, actually.
Yeah. Well, I find like it's like this desire to connect in a deep way and not knowing how to do that.
Yeah,
And
not
the
knowing.
generational split of how technology and culture is moving so fast that I'm 41 and I don't even get what kids are going through, right? Like it's just 20 years or 10 years and what they're bombarded with growing up through elementary, junior high, or exposed to with the amount of, access to social media and technology. And so I'm putting the call out to call us in into how do we create a bridge between generations and not disconnect from generations? Because I have a deep desire to learn from the youth, to like not employ ageism saying, well, back in my day it was the best, or you should do it my way. How do we evolve together? And the youth, along with the elders, the older people, have wisdom that we can tie in together, bringing that back into the fold, right? Because we view it from different perspectives, right, and different experiences.
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from the multi-generations. I'm looking forward to having some of our younger friends here on this to give some perspective, because I think, we have had a lot of ageism and generational discords. Oh, back in the day, oh, kids these days, oh, blah, blah, blah. Well, what is the story that's being told here? What's the bigger story that we might be able to learn from them?
Isn't that beautiful? When you're pulling out at that level, there is a story, a human story that's being played out.
Yeah.
And with that human story, we can look at the history of the patterns that have been, recurring.
Mm-hmm.
And this allows us to then see that, if we're in the story at this particular time, it creates relief for me to know what's next because the story has been played out again. Just like the apocalypse is not really the end of times, but the beginning of another.
Right.
And that it's always been going on like that as generations change. And I want to check in with the comments here to catch up on. Tracy is saying, you're speaking my language. I see community for living, growing real food, raising real food, community kitchen, everything we need in a community type lifestyle. Tracy Bar, the school system also has to change because it greatly affects our children and feeds entitlement and some of these other things you're talking about. Chris says he pulled his boys out of the regular school system and put them in unschool. In Indigo Sudbury campus taught them self-responsibility, self-awareness, community, how to be in community. Yeah. Wow. Naomi, oh my God, my daughter is teaching me so much. She has great insight and she isn't afraid to share it and be herself with me. I'm so honored by her presence in my life. Wow, isn't it? Like I don't have kids, right? And so I'm not like tied into the emotional pieces, but I can see it from afar because I'm not attached. And I see like, kids aren't like they're not like born for the parents. They're born through them. As if like they're not really your kids. Like they're your kids, but they're also like source's kids, universe's kids, God's expression too as well. And so to be able to see my kids as a teacher, wow, what a humbling experience, eh? In my Asian culture, it's not like that.
No.
It's like because of your age, you don't get the respect. Like I have to give respect to people that are older than me, regardless of whether they earn that respect or not.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like I want to respect my elders 100%. Though like there's got to be congruency and integrity and respect amongst generations because
Yeah.
we can all learn from each other.
Yeah. I mean, kids, yeah. I mean, let's give them some grace. Have they been taught how to communicate compassionately? Has anyone ever taught them that? Do you know how to do it as a parent? We have not been taught that.
Yeah.
So they're coming out raging. They're angry. They're irritated. They're annoyed. They're distressed. My daughter says that they're very sad at the state of the world. They're rebelling. And they're not really rebelling against you as an individual. And I think this is the mistake we make as parents is we take it very personally. And then we have this desire, we want to be right. And well, I didn't do that. That's not me. And
I think it's a human thing to take things personally.
it is. It is. It's human. It's also egotistical. And when we can take a step back and recognize, and like that's what I say, I'm so excited. I hope some of our younger friends, we've got some amazing younger 18, 19, 20-year-olds that I hope come on and share their life experience and speak honestly. Some of them, their parents belittle them and don't think much of them, but the wisdom they share is quite profound.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like I would compare myself to like, yeah, these kids, I label them as kids, right? 20-year-old. I'm like, wow, you're so wise. Like you're so aware. And I'm comparing myself because at that time, when I look at myself 20 years old, I was so disconnected. I had no wisdom whatsoever. Right? It was there, but it was like so far gone. It's as if like these kids came out like already that in them, right? It's not like a lived experience in this current lifetime, but a lived experience previous lifetimes coming into this unlocked already and revealed. And I love what Chris said here. Indigenous cultures teaches we're only loaned our children to raise them for the creator. They're not ours.
Yeah, yet so many people expect them to follow in them footsteps. If I'm a doctor, you be a doctor. They want them to fulfill their dreams in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The ones that they didn't fulfill themselves. That's a thing. I know in your culture specifically, I think also in mine, you should be a doctor. You
Yeah.
should be something of a lawyer, those kinds of
It's traditional. I
what
think for
traditionally was.
any country that's been coming from an ancient traditional culture, like it's kind of baked in that versus the new age of like follow your passions, follow what you love. Like
Right.
we kind of joke that it's kind of like a whitewash Western style mentality, but Eastern European, Middle East, Asia, East Asia, of course, your parents want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. Like that was the thing. That was what was deemed to be successful. So it totally makes sense. Yeah.
It's interesting to me because I did a lot of the Asian cultures to go back to ancient wisdom.
Oh.
And I think it's been so disconnected, and then there's this new age thing, well, let's follow your bliss. But when that's disconnected from ancient wisdom, I think that's where we make the mistake of not tying into, like you said, these kids have probably been born into past lives that have a wisdom that comes through them at birth. There's this evolution happening. And in terms of those 3 stages, the emotional slavery, the emotional obnoxiousness, and then the emotional liberation, I think these kids really quite clearly show. And even some older adults, it's like, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. I do not want to have my nervous system so ratched that I need 10 cups of coffee a day, or I need to have my whatever drug of choice to numb myself from trying to push through every day. And how do we, make that transition into collaborative, conscious, slower moving relationships? I think it starts with ourselves.
Yeah, starts with ourselves. Of knowing that, like, this idea of I want to go back to like the corporate industrial complex, that thinking productivity is about efficiency with time, right? Got to do things quick, got to find the shortcut, and of course not cut corners. Though reframing that paradigm to create space for stillness and slowing down and presence, that actually leads to more productivity. So perhaps that industry needs more science and more proof to show that that's real. And I can say in my own life that if I do slow down, I make less mistakes. When I do slow down, I'm actually more present and I can take things in and learn versus on my phone while listening to a YouTube thing and reading a book. Like I'm so distracted that I have to redo that over again because it came in one ear out the other. So it's like this paradigm of the business, right?
Yeah.
Like in order to be successful, we gotta be fucking. There's an F bomb right there. Burning the midnight oil, right? It's like, wait a minute, how can we culturally slow down intentionally, not judge it to be lazy? I remember working my 9 to 5, I had to be there for 8 hours, like clock in, clock out. And
Didn't they require overtime? I see so many places these days. Overtime. If you're not, you get guilted. You can't take a break even.
Yeah, the oil and gas, right? And unfortunately, here's the thing, because then if I don't subscribe to that model, someone else would, right? I'm easily replaceable, right? And so I'm kind of in a way like have to say, if I want to work that job, say yes to that overworking culture, right? If I need to take the bills.
Here's the thing though, if we jointly stop doing that,
that's a challenge, right? It requires the consciousness rising to be like, you know what, maybe 5-day work days don't work anymore. Maybe 8-hour days is archaic. Maybe we can work 4 effective hours and still create the same output, right? Man, when I was with the men last Saturday, coming together to build swales for the Secret Sanctuary, we were so impressed that we got it done so quickly. There was like 6 of us, and we're like, wow, we thought this was going to take 3 hours, like an hour and a half, like half the time. Like, many hands make light work. And I got that from my buddy Scott. Many hands make light work.
And why is that, do you think? Oh, it is exponential, right? You're probably talking, you're collaborating, you're chatting, you've got new information coming in. It doesn't even feel like there's time at all, right?
Yeah. And, I'm taking, some training with nonviolent communication, and we're playing with this role play scenario of like, Summer making a request to paint her house over the weekend. And I was like, nah, speaking my truth, like it creates resistance. I want to rest. That doesn't sound like fun at all. And as Summer was listening to my needs, I'm like, oh, you have a need for fun. You need for play. Okay. And really connecting with that. And she came back with, what about, I order pizza or play some music, invite some friends. And when that shifted of like this work being just like work, to like, wow, we can add some fun into it, some connection into it, some play into it. I'm like, actually, I'm down for that. I don't mind painting a house in that type of environment. So how do we create more of that in the work that we do? That it's fun, playful, connected, and we're contributing. And bet you anything, the productivity is going to soar out the roof.
Yeah.
The turnover is going to be lowered 100%.
Yeah.
Because people want to be there. They know that they're contributing because they can feel in their body.
Yeah. That need to contribute. But while they're contributing, to get some of that other human energy back, to be able to talk. I mean, while you're painting, you're easily able to talk about other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just do so many things alone. And it feels like it takes a millennium, and then it's like, oh, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, Remembering the Village, August 15th to 17th. It's a family-friendly event. It's very cost-effective. It's about being together. It is at the Secret Sanctuary.
Near Pigeon Lake.
Near Pigeon Lake. It's camping. It's really a gathering. There's not a lot of presenters or people trying to sell you stuff or doing that. It's really about a coming together and reconnecting and a remembering type of way, remembering what it was like to be in a village where you didn't have to be busy to get things done, to take over the world. It was about being.
Yeah. And let's bring science into it too, because science can prove it. Science can prove it. I love what Tim said, like compassion and science could help build connection between generations.
Compassion and science could be attention.
Because it could be measurable.
Yeah.
Like heart math, for example, like how does, feeling like heard, having that curiosity spirit, like you could do a test group of people that are, connected, happy, clear versus those that are just working for someone else and falling, and you can measure the output.
I suppose so. My body kind of regales against that because it's very old Newtonian science, the objective observer type thing.
Mm.
Whereas when we go to quantum science, it's much different. They talk about the observer bringing about what's being observed, and you don't really
Need to quantify it. Some people want the
I mean,
quantification.
you can do that. I mean, just like you did. You just did an experiment. You took some men out and you did this thing that would have taken, 10, 20 hours by yourself, and you did an hour and a half, and you were shocked at how much time that took. And yeah, you can put it into a quantum measurement, or not quantum, just a scientific Newtonian type of measurement. You sure can.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's think tanks out there that are doing that and evolving and wanting and desiring to evolve these old archaic, corporate
Oh,
structures.
I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist there because I think they know very well what that's like.
Well, it starts with like, us, and it's like the popcorn effect, perhaps like on a bigger scale, like that might get shut down if we're speaking conspiracy theories to keep us disconnected from ourselves. So having conversations like this and just kind of just what if and slowing things down, right? I think that's a big piece is like, do I have a practice to slow things down? Because when I do slow things down, I start to question. I start to ask myself, why am I here? Why do I exist? Why do I do the things that I do? What do I want? What do I need? What am I feeling? And it's just a muscle because I've been there. I've been disconnected. I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. It felt uncomfortable. So I would use distractions like video games or drugs, alcohol, numb myself. And I can just keep pushing through, even though I was unhappy, depressed, anxious. I numbed myself.
Yeah.
And then I stopped taking those things. I'm like, oh my God, how do I deal with this stuff? And it's just a muscle. Now the idea is like being so tuned with myself that I'm like, I know what my yes and my no is. I know when my heart caves in or my chest gets tight. I know when I'm irritated and I'm able to name it and kind of follow the rabbit trail.
Yeah.
And what happens is it builds this confidence that I start trusting myself. Because when I numb those signals of what my body's telling me, then I'm really not trusting myself. I'm disconnected. I'm floating like a paper bag in the wind.
That's good.
But when I start tuning in with myself, oh my God, there's a sense of weight there that I'm willing to speak up now. I'm willing to hold space for people's judgments because I know how to self-regulate, and I can also track people that can co-regulate together because we're speaking the same language. Just like our conscious communication community, it's so nurturing, so generative because we're speaking the same language, right?
Yeah.
We get to hear each other.
Yeah.
And then I can take that energy and then go out there and, share this energy with others. And if I see someone else, I'm like, yeah, there's got to be more to life, man. This desire. It's like the Matrix. Morpheus handing out red pills in a way. Like, you ready? You ready to unplug? And that to me is, hey, I'm good. Like one at a time. Am I doing my part? And when every single person does their part, like the pyramid in the water,
Yeah.
like it just melts at the bottom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Creative solutions are found when we tap into our creative, unlimited intelligence. And it's interesting, we're afraid of it, and most of us numb it, right? Because we haven't been taught. We were born into a world of chaos, of PTSD, backing on the world wars. And now there's more of a spiritual economic war of divine pressure. And in a way, it's very divinely orchestrated because the more pressure you have, the more economic pressure. You go, okay, well, what can I do? And it pushes you into relationship and finding new ways to be in relationship and finding a new way of relating, which means a new way of communicating.
Yeah. And this brings a mind to me of like having my family over again.
Oh,
Just-
yeah.
Just because I want to change the way we're relating. because my
Yeah.
family was over last weekend, coming over to her place for her first time, and my mom was in the kitchen, and every word that came out was a criticism of like not having the right pots and pans or the sink drainer and all that stuff. And I noticed myself, I wasn't actually reacting in that moment. I just like in a way kind of numbing, like
Mm.
doesn't phase me. It's all right.
I was there, but I didn't understand it.
Yeah. But then it's like interesting. This is just my mom's default way of relating to me is to tell me what's wrong because it comes from a loving place. By telling me what's wrong, she tells me what's right. Right. It's like negative reinforcement. So the next time that happens, perhaps I could just pause the reinforce instead of just reacting, getting angry, or just ignoring it. Okay, I could touch her, be like, "I got you, mom. You mean this thing, right? This will work great." And just like the energy behind it, the words that I use, do not replicate her criticism, like I'm criticizing her back, but actually like acknowledging what she's saying, hearing the feelings and needs behind it, and sharing it from a loving place, and just changing that dynamic. One thing that was nice too was when we were leaving, I gave my mom a hug. Like, man, rewiring. Like, we don't hug, we don't touch, but you know what? It's time to rewire that, rechange that, bring some touch in. When my sister criticizing me on my salad rolls, how I wrapped it, I'm like, I wasn't reacting. My old self would have been like reactive to it. But next time, if that happens, I'd be like, hey, this just playful with it, right? This is my style or something. You know? Like just reframing, re-relating those
Or just
patterns.
even,
Yeah.
isn't it interesting that we compete on every level, even how we do our salad rolls as siblings?
Yeah. Yeah. The need to be seen.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So it goes back then to like, how do we start tuning in? There's another reason why we're busy. No one's taught us how to be with the chaos in a way that it starts to make more sense. How do we bring those fractured pieces and that disconnection? The numbing does suit a need. It's soothing. It's calming.
Yeah. It serves a purpose.
It can be very overwhelming with all the emotions, the physical sensations, the memories, the trauma. Like,
Helps me power through it. If I got to get things done, I got to get things done.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So switching it up,
Yeah.
making different choices. Do we need the big house? Do we need the big car? What are we going to focus on?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much like gas I have going down that road of numbing and pushing through. Because if nothing changes, something's going to happen with that.
Yeah, that's how crisis comes to be.
Yeah, crisis. Or I need to drink more. I need to watch more. I need to numb myself more. My body starts breaking down. Yeah. Symptoms. Yeah.
Relationship
Health issues.
crisis.
Yes.
Yeah, all those
Divorce.
things. Yeah. Yeah. So how do we tap in a way that allows us to heal then versus be overwhelmed by it all?
For me, what has worked for me is just creating space for that. Like, and perhaps I might not know where to start. I I can join like a support group or an accountability group or something, like even as simple as like a meditation group to start out. If I haven't had the practice of a mindful practice of like becoming self-aware, I just get to start one, like maybe a minute of pause, check in with myself, 5 minutes meditation. Doesn't have to be too big, but just reaping the benefits of it, like having the experience and like see for yourself, see how it actually affects you in that moment. For me, I'm like, oh wow, I noticed like I become more calm, more present, more clear, actually more happier. Then when I'm scrambling, scattered, anxious, rushing around, feeling overwhelmed, thinking of so many things I got to do and close tabs.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just stop and check in with myself, it's as if like I'm alive. Oh, I actually exist. Nothing else matters in this moment. I actually am creating my own suffering. So creating that observer effect, right? So yeah, I think a simple presence practice will help build the momentum because then once I've experienced the benefits, then I'm like, I want more of this. And I want to surround myself in environments that create more of this. and it might inspire me to bring this to work.
I'm curious. Looks like there's a few more
Oh, yeah?
comments there. Yeah.
Yeah. Tracy Rabar says, I eat more chocolate.
Yeah. Yep. I've done that.
Yeah, I love chocolate.
Yum, yum, yum.
Definitely.
Chips, bags of
Hers is-
chips.
Hers is Nestle Fruit and Newt. Or not Fruit and Newt.
Fruit and nut. I
Fruit
often
and
go
nut.
for the fruit and nut. I really like it. I
Yeah.
put it in the freezer so it's crunchier.
Yeah, I like my peanut butter cups times.
Yeah. For sure. Chocolate's great. Chocolate is good.
Chris says, there was the blessing behind COVID and the pandemic. All of a sudden, everyone everywhere was sent to the rooms to think about what they had done. It actually backfired because people also had time to think, to slow down. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's right. It's definitely
I love that, to
Yeah,
be able to be at
slow
home. I
down.
didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It actually was very cathartic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the gift in the pandemic. Slowing things down.
Yes.
Now we're like sped things up again.
And now, it just seems to, as soon as all done, everything's sped up again because everyone's like, oh, everyone else is rushing. I better rush too. I got to keep up to everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you? Like, what would you say, for people to, start slowing down? What would help them to cultivate more presence and being tuned?
Sometimes, like, when you're so busy, sometimes it does take a crisis to force you to stop, because when you have little pieces of it, it can be a little scary. We're taught to be afraid of the inner world. And if there's anything I would say to people, that it's the most benevolent, beautiful thing. It is our judgments and our thoughts and our fears that actually recreate the trauma that we experience. All that nervous system energy that's been condensed and collapsed and tucked away somewhere in our body finds its way out. And I truly believe that the way our nervous system and how we're built is so highly intelligent that it cannot overwhelm us. It will not take us out. It is not of that. Life does not destroy itself. It gives us just as much as we can handle. And it is so helpful to have other people who have done some of that path or some of that work or something that that can create that space that allows you to move through it in an exponential, body felt way. The key for me is getting out of the head. There's a real sense that I can see in people when they're like trying to figure things out mentally in that logical way. Whereas the PTSD, the energy that we've absorbed, is not sorted that way.
Well, here's a question. How can I get out of my head when I've never gone out of my head?
I think the easiest way, honestly, I mean, there's lots of things people are doing, the ayahuasca, the different plant medicines, although if your ego is very persistent, it will persist through a plant medicine journey if you don't know how to get out of its way. The easiest way is to be with someone who knows how to drop out of their head and that trusts it, so that you can co-regulate with those people.
Yeah, it's so important to be with someone that has done it, like the modeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're born. Our parents are meant to have that nervous system for us, and that never happened. And so different people have come into different life experiences and gone through tumultuous experiences, or just different types of experiences based on their soul path and their learning, that allows them to create that space and that wisdom. And it becomes, actually, I was just talking to a gentleman this morning about different learning styles. And we talked about that. The 5 senses. Are you audio? Are you visual?
Feeling,
kinesthetic? And he was like, well, actually, if I sit and listen long enough and you speak to me, sometimes I can pick up what you're saying before you're even finished speaking. I'm like, yeah, there's a body felt sense of intelligence, of remembering how we work, how these body conduits are supposed to be functioning. It's an instantaneous thing.
And that requires me to slow down and really hear that, right? And really connect with
We
that.
do need to slow down. That's like Greg Braden's book, The Spontaneous Healing of Book. There's spontaneous insight. There's epiphanic knowing
Mm.
that
Yeah.
precedes this life in our birth.
It's so interesting because like this requires a lot of unlearning for me. I remember at this personal development seminar, and I was staffing,
Yeah.
and that whole idea is urgency. Like as a
Mhm.
staff, like between exercises, I had to like go rush up to one of the uh, participants of the class to
Yeah.
connect with them, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Like rush, like make it happen because it just shows the enthusiasm, the
Oh.
excitement, that movement energy, right?
Mm.
And now when I look back to now, I'm like, why would I want to do that? Like, I just want to take my time with presence and care and look around and be like, hey, how's it going? And connect with you versus just like telling me to rush. And then maybe I will get in trouble now. Like, because like it goes against my nature. If someone told me, like, if I were to staff again and told me to, you got to rush and get up there, I'm like, it might come here and it might come up there. And I might just be like taking my time. And someone might pull me aside and be like, hey, what's going on? I'd be like, well, that doesn't work for me. And here's why. Yeah.
Well, I wonder because I think the idea was enthusiasm, but inauthentic
Yes.
enthusiasm.
Yes.
is
Inauthentic.
not-
That's right. That's right. That's where you got it. It felt like I was faking it.
Yeah.
I was performing it.
We're
And I
not
want to be
present
real. Yeah. Yeah.
to what's needed in that moment. Maybe
Yeah.
that person needs some pick me up and enthusiasm, but maybe they just need, hey, how you doing? Maybe their nervous system is too ratched for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It was inauthentic. I was acting in that because I just was following instructions.
Ah, that's a key, isn't it? Following instructions, doing what we're told
Yeah.
versus what we feel in our body. Haven't we all been taught to do that? To be people pleasers in some way, to manipulate to get what we need because we haven't been taught how to get it in an authentic way. I mean, I think that's the basis of almost everything.
Yeah. And I now have this resistance towards anything that asks me to like 10x it or go like balls to the walls, like the hyper masculine energy. Before I'm like, I used to subscribe to that 100%, but now I'm like, no, this doesn't work because it takes me out of my presence.
Yeah.
It takes me out of my inner knowing, and that requires me to slow down and do things deliberately, with meticulous, with precision, like it's surgical, because I'm here and I'm slowed down. Even talking right now, I notice when I'm excited, I talk fast, and I'm great with my words, but then I'm like, wait a minute, Trey, can I just slow down with my words so that people can receive it as well? Yeah.
Well, and I think, that hyper masculine approach to things, I think that's actually where a lot of accidents and injuries happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That forcing,
Yeah.
get to the finish line, even though.
Yeah. And I'm not speaking down on taking action on the masculine energy, or it's just there's yeah.
It's the hyper part.
Yeah, the hyper part, exactly. It's
We
out of
need to take
balance.
action. There's that other thing is, oh, well, God will take everything, take care of everything. And the new age, too fluffy. Well, no. Once you get a message, once you know what it is that you have to do, you actually have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
You have to be an equal and mutual participant in the co-creation of your life and your relationships. No one's going to do it for you. No one's going to rescue you until you say you're in.
Yeah. You're the main character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Where are we at for time?
Yeah, we're great with time. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. And this month, busyness brings up a lot of things, doesn't it? And yeah, I'm actually super stoked about this topic because it is something that I'm faced with every day, is this restlessness within my mind and myself and expectations, and being in the environment of like, I'm not in the jungle right now, like I'm in the city. And so it's so prevalent, and I'm grateful that this is being talked about, naming it. Yeah.
The greater efficiency that comes with the space to create new ideas.
Yeah.
because we aren't very efficient when we're tired, when we're burnt out.
Yeah.
Creating the rhythm of recovery, of sleep, of rest.
So we invite you to slow down this weekend.
Slow down to speed
Take
up.
a breath. Yeah. Be with breath. Till next time. See you next week, Friday, 12 p.m. Get Resourced. Like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube. We also have a Facebook group as well, Get Resourced, for conscious co-creating relationships, and we're also live there as well. And we have like posts and letting you know of upcoming workshops and
Yeah, we're going to
all that
invite some
jazz.
of our young friends, and hopefully they join us on here so we can hear the younger generation's
Yeah.
perspective on all this stuff.
Yeah.
And give us some ideas of maybe why estrangement and this obnoxiousness is actually happening.
That really excites me.
Yeah.
To really
Mm.
see through their lens
Yeah.
and what they're experiencing in this world.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
what's that?
Chris says, I like Stephen Covey. His talk about effectiveness versus efficiency. Tracy Rabar, see you later, 100%. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Effectiveness versus efficiency. Uh-huh.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.